I look at churches and how are we doing in terms of penetrating our culture with the gospel, you know, we're not doing too well. I'll just be honest. I mean, a lot of church growth is just the transfer of Christians from one church to another, and not turning atheists into missionaries, which is what we ought to be focused on. And so, you know, how can we do a better job of reaching the lost of each of our communities? I think there's a couple of keys. A couple of things I'll mention real quickly. Number one, I think every church needs to have a point person for evangelism, who stays up late at night praying, thinking, strategizing about how we're going to reach our community for Christ. Don't burden that person with 18 other things to do. You know, it may be a volunteer, it may be a part-time person, maybe a full-time person, but I think somebody needs to be devoted full-time in terms of their ministry to figuring out how is our church going to better penetrate our culture for Christ. The other thing is, we're seeing great success with spiritual small groups for non-believers. We call them spiritual discovery groups. And these have about an 80% conversion rate. They're perfect for millennials, people who like to express their own opinion about God, get into conversations. They're incredible evangelistic engines. And if your church wants to start a ministry of spiritual discovery groups, there's a book by Gary Poole, who's the kind of the guru on this topic, called Seeker Small Groups. That is A to Z plan and information on how to start this ministry in your church. We used to call them seeker groups, now we call them spiritual discovery groups. But that book is a great A to Z guide. And I think every church should have, whether it's one group or hundreds. We had 1,100 non-believers in these groups when I was a pastor in Chicago. And we tracked them over a period of time and found that 80% of the participants came to faith in Christ. I don't know where else you get an 80% conversion rate. So Alpha is kind of built on this model a bit. But I would encourage all churches to launch that kind of ministry, to engage people in the culture in conversations about God.